Japanese generals couldn't believe the speed of MacArthur's island-hopping campaign. In the Pacific theater, General Douglas MacArthur's bold strategy bypassed heavily fortified Japanese strongholds, leaping from island to island with amphibious assaults that caught imperial commanders off guard, from the Solomons to the Philippines. Admirals like Yamamoto watched in disbelief as American forces, supported by carrier fleets and marine divisions, turned the tide from grueling attrition to swift, unstoppable advances, forcing Japan into desperate defensive retreats. Section 1. The Gathering Storm. August 7th, 1942, 04:30 hours. The dark waters of Iron Bottom Sound churn under a moonless sky off Guadalcanal. You can almost hear the low rumble of engines, hundreds of them, as U.S. Navy transports slice through the waves, their decks crammed with Marines clutching M1 Garands, hearts pounding in the pre-dawn hush. Salt spray stings their faces, the metallic tang of fear mixing with the humid tropical air. No one speaks above a whisper. In the distance, the shadowy outline of the island looms like a sleeping giant, but this giant is armed to the teeth with Japanese defenders who have no idea what's coming. Aboard the flagship USS Macaulay, Rear Admiral Richmond Kelly Turner scans the horizon through binoculars, his jaw set. "This is it," he mutters to his staff. The operation, codenamed Watchtower, has been thrown together in haste, a desperate bid to halt the Japanese juggernaut that's been sweeping across the Pacific since Pearl Harbor. Just 8 months earlier, on December 7, 1941, the Imperial Japanese Navy's carrier strike force, under Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto, had unleashed hell on the U.S. Pacific Fleet, sinking battleships and shattering illusions of invulnerability. Now, the Americans are striking back, not with a sledgehammer, but with a scalpel, beginning the island-hopping campaign that would redefine warfare in the vast ocean theater. As the first landing craft grind onto the coral beaches of Guadalcanal, explosions rip through the night. Naval gunfire from cruisers like the USS Quincy pounds Japanese positions, flames erupting in brilliant orange against the black. Marines of the 1st Division, led by Major General Alexander Vandegrift, scramble ashore amid whistling bullets and the acrid smoke of cordite. "Move! Move!" sergeants bellow as men dash for cover behind palm logs and shell craters. The Japanese garrison, construction troops mostly, caught flat-footed, fires back sporadically, their Type 38 rifles cracking in confusion. They expected raids, not invasion. Radio operators frantically tap out messages to Rabaul. Enemy landing in force, strength unknown. Hundreds of miles north in the fortified bunkers of Truk Atoll, Admiral Yamamoto paces his command center, the weight of empire on his shoulders. The man who planned Pearl Harbor with his sharp features and unyielding gaze receives the initial reports with a furrowed brow. "Impossible," he whispers. The Americans, reeling from defeats at Bataan and Corregidor, shouldn't be capable of this. Just months ago, General Douglas MacArthur had been forced to evacuate the Philippines, uttering his famous vow, "I shall return," as he slipped away on a PT boat under cover of night. Yamamoto's forces had conquered Guam, Wake, the Dutch East Indies, and pushed to the gates of Australia. The Pacific was Japan's lake, or so it seemed. But MacArthur, exiled to Australia with his battered Southwest Pacific Area Command, had other plans. A 5-star general with a corncob pipe and an ego to match, he huddled with his staff in Melbourne, poring over maps dotted with islands like stepping stones. "We won't grind them down in attrition," he declared, his voice gravelly from years of command. "We'll bypass the strong points, isolate them, and leapfrog to the heart." This was island hopping, amphibious assaults on weakly defended atolls, securing airfields and bases to project power forward, leaving Japanese garrisons to wither on the vine. Supported by Admiral William Bull Halsey's carrier task forces and the Marines' amphibious expertise, it was a strategy born of necessity. America's industrial might was ramping up, but time was the enemy. Back on Guadalcanal, the fighting intensifies as dawn breaks. Japanese snipers in the treetops pick off advancing Marines, bodies crumpling into the kunai grass. "Medic!" echoes across the beachhead. Vandegrift's men seize Henderson Field, a half-built airstrip that's the prize of the island. Control it, and you control the skies over the Solomons. But the Japanese response is swift. From Rabaul, Lieutenant General Harukichi Hayatake dispatches reinforcements, his face ashen as he realizes the scale. "They've bypassed our outer defenses," he tells his aides. "This is no raid." Naval battles rage in the slot, the narrow channel between islands where destroyers like the USS Jarvis trade torpedoes with Japanese cruisers under the command of Vice Admiral Gunichi Mikawa. Ships burn, men scream into the oil-slicked sea. You can feel the shift in the air, that electric tension when momentum teeters. MacArthur, coordinating from afar, sees Guadalcanal as the first hop, but the cost is brutal. Dysentery ravages troops, malaria fells more than bullets, Marines hunker in foxholes during Tokyo Express runs, nightly Japanese resupply convoys that bombard the island. One private, soaked in mud, writes home, "It's hell, but we're holding." The battle drags into months, a grinder of attrition that tests the strategy's mettle. Yamamoto, monitoring from afar, underestimates the American resolve. "They'll break," he assures his staff, but they don't. As 1942 bleeds into 1943, Guadalcanal falls to the Allies. The Japanese evacuate 11,000 survivors in a daring nighttime withdrawal, leaving behind 24,000 dead. It's a Pyrrhic victory for the U.S., over 7,000 casualties, but a signal flare. MacArthur's forces, now bolstered by Australian allies, eye the next targets: New Georgia, Kolombangara. The hops are getting bolder. In Tokyo, the Imperial General Headquarters buzzes with unease. Prime Minister Hideki Tojo demands explanations. "How are they moving so fast?" he thunders. The answer lies in logistics and innovation. Liberty ships pour out of American yards, carrying tanks, artillery, and Seabees, naval construction battalions that build airstrips in days. Carrier air groups with Hellcats and Corsairs dominate the skies, shredding Zero fighters. MacArthur's intelligence, aided by codebreakers who cracked JN-25, anticipates Japanese moves. But the Japanese cling to their Bushido code, fortifying every rock, expecting frontal assaults. They don't see the leaps coming. On the ground, the human drama unfolds. Take Sergeant John Basilone, a Marine machine gunner on Guadalcanal who holds off waves of banzai charges, his .30 cal blazing until the barrel glows red. Awarded the Medal of Honor, he embodies the grit that fuels the campaign. Or consider the Japanese soldiers, like Private Toshio Tanaka, starving in jungle redoubts, whispering prayers to the Emperor as Allied bombers thunder overhead. Their disbelief mounts as reports filter in, Americans landing here, bypassing there. It's like ghosts, one officer confides in his diary. By mid-1943, Operation Cartwheel kicks off, a dual advance up the Solomons and along New Guinea's coast. MacArthur's 6th Army, under Lieutenant General Kruger, seizes Leh and Finshausen in lightning amphibious hooks. Paratroopers drop from C-46 B-27s, securing Nadzab airstrip in hours. The Japanese, led by General Hatazo Adachi's 18th Army, are outflanked, their supply lines severed. Adachi, a stern tactician, slams his fist on the table. They're not fighting fair. But war isn't fair, it's about speed now. You pause, imagining the maps redrawn daily, arrows piercing Japanese-held territory like daggers. The island hopping accelerates, each leap shortening the path to Tokyo. But as forces converge on Bougainville, the largest Solomon Island, the storm brews. Yamamoto himself decides to intervene, launching Operation I-Go, a massive air offensive. Will it crush the American advance or expose the cracks in Japan's armor? Section 2. The Fatal Flight. April 18, 1943, 0600 hours. The dense green canopy of Bougainville's jungle stretches endlessly below two sleek Betty bombers, slicing through the humid dawn air. Inside the lead aircraft, Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto sits calmly in his uniform, white-gloved hands folded, reviewing inspection schedules. The architect of Pearl Harbor, the man who warned Japan that he could run wild for 6 months, perhaps a year before America awoke, is now personally rallying his scattered forces. Operation I-Go has failed to blunt the Allied advance. American carriers and land-based aircraft shredded his air offensive. Frustrated, Yamamoto boards this flight from Rabaul to Buin Airfield for a morale-boosting tour. He has no idea that American codebreakers have just intercepted his exact itinerary. Far to the east, over Henderson Field on Guadalcanal, 16 P-38 Lightning fighters roar into the sky at 0715 hours. Major John W. Mitchell leads the pack, his twin-boomed aircraft loaded with drop tanks for the 400-mile intercept. The mission, codenamed Operation Vengeance, is top secret, approved by President Roosevelt himself. Navy cryptanalysts at Pearl Harbor cracked the Japanese naval code, again pinpointing Yamamoto's flight path down to the minute. Get him, the orders read simply. As the Lightnings climb, pilots like Lieutenant Rex Barber grip their sticks tighter. This isn't just another combat mission, this is retribution. Back in the Solomons, MacArthur's island hopping surges forward unchecked. While Yamamoto flies toward his fate, U.S. forces execute a textbook leap on June 30th, 1943. American troops under Rear Admiral Richmond Kelly Turner storm ashore at Rendova and New Georgia in Operation Toenails. Amphibious tractors, alligators, and buffaloes churn through surf, disgorging soldiers of the 43rd Infantry Division onto beaches under light resistance. Japanese defenders, expecting the usual frontal assault on fortified Kolombangara, are stunned when the Americans bypass it entirely, seizing lightly held islands to flank the stronghold. Munda Airfield falls after brutal jungle fighting, bayonets in the mud, flamethrowers scorching bunkers. But the pattern repeats. Seize the airfield, bring in fighters, dominate the air, isolate the enemy. In Brisbane, MacArthur leans over his map table, corncob pipe clenched, tracing the next hops with a red pencil. "We're not here to conquer every grain of sand," he tells his Chief of Staff, Lieutenant General Richard Sutherland. "We're here to cut their lifeline and drive north." His Southwest Pacific forces, now swollen with fresh divisions, coordinate with Halsey's South Pacific Command in a pincer movement. Australian troops under General Thomas Blamey slog through the swamps of New Guinea, capturing Salamaua, while MacArthur's engineers miracle-build airstrips overnight. Seabees with bulldozers level coral in days what the Japanese took months to fortify. But the real shock comes in Tokyo. On April 18th, radio silence from Yamamoto's flight stretches into hours. Then confirmation, both Bettys shot down in flames over the jungle. Japanese search parties find the wreckage days later. Yamamoto's body still strapped in his seat, sword at his side, burned but recognizable. The news is kept secret from the public, but in Imperial headquarters, it's a thunderbolt. General Hajime Sugiyama, chief of the Army General Staff, stares at the report in disbelief. "They knew his exact route," he mutters. "How?" Paranoia spreads. traitors? Impossible. The truth? American code-breaking supremacy is unthinkable. The psychological blow ripples outward. Yamamoto's successor, Admiral Minechi Koga, inherits a navy already bleeding carriers from Midway and the Solomons. Without Yamamoto's strategic genius, Japan's high command fractures. Army and navy rivalries worsen. Resources scatter to defend every outpost. They dig in deeper on islands like Tarawa and Truk, pouring concrete into bunkers, convinced the Americans will bleed themselves white, assaulting every fortress. They don't yet grasp that MacArthur and Admiral Chester Nimitz have synchronized their advances, MacArthur hopping up the New Guinea coast and through the Bismarck archipelago, Nimitz driving through the Central Pacific, Gilberts and Marshalls. By late 1943, the pace quickens. On September 4th, Australian troops land at Lae, unopposed after Allied bombers pulverized defenses. Days later, the 503rd Paratroop Regiment drops on Nodzab, securing it in minutes. General Adachi's 18th Army, once 140,000 strong, is reduced to starving remnants retreating into the mountains. MacArthur himself flies into Nodzab just hours after capture, striding down the airstrip in his battered cap and sunglasses, declaring to cheering troops, "We're on our way back." Japanese commanders watch the maps turn blue with horror. Vice Admiral Junichi Kusaka at Rabaul cables Tokyo. Enemy advances with unprecedented speed. Strongpoints bypassed. Supply impossible. In Manila, General Tomoyuki Yamashita, the Tiger of Malaya, receives frantic pleas from isolated garrisons. He shakes his head. They move like the wind. You can sense the growing desperation in Japanese war diaries, officers writing of ghost fleets appearing overnight, of islands falling before reinforcements arrive. The Americans aren't just stronger, they're smarter, faster. Carrier task forces under Admirals Mark Michener and Raymond Spruance provide umbrella air cover that no Japanese surface fleet can challenge. Hellcats sweep Zeros from the sky in what pilots call the Marianas turkey shoot later on, but the seeds are sown here. As 1943 closes, MacArthur eyes the Admiralty Islands and the great Japanese bastion at Rabaul itself. Intelligence reports it ringed with 100,000 troops and hundreds of aircraft. Conventional wisdom screams frontal assault, another bloody Tarawa. But MacArthur has something bolder in mind, a leap that will leave Rabaul neutralized without firing a shot at its beaches. The question hangs in the humid air. How far can he jump before the Japanese finally adapt?
Section 3. The Leap That Broke Rabaul. February 29th, 1944, 0200 hours. The blacked-out silhouettes of 30 LSTs and destroyers ghost through the Bismarck Sea toward Los Negros in the Admiralty Islands. Aboard the flagship USS Phoenix, Major General Innes P. Swift peers through the drizzle, his face lit faintly by the red glow of the bridge. Intelligence says the island is lightly held, maybe a few hundred Japanese. If Swift's cavalrymen can seize Momote Airfield in hours, MacArthur will have vaulted 400 miles in one bound, turning the great fortress of Rabaul into a useless backwater overnight. But if the intel is wrong, this reconnaissance in force could become a slaughter. As the first wave of the 1st Cavalry Division's dismounted troopers turned amphibious assault troops hits the beach, silence greets them. No machine gun fire, no banzai charges, just the crash of surf and the distant call of night birds. Men fan out warily, boots sinking into volcanic sand. By dawn, they've overrun Momote's battered runway with only scattered resistance. Swift radios back. Enemy weaker than expected. Recommend full commitment. MacArthur, monitoring from his headquarters in Goodenough Island, doesn't hesitate. Pour it on, he orders. Within days, the entire 1st Cavalry is ashore. Seabees swarming with bulldozers, turning Momote and nearby Seidler Harbor into a forward base that projects American air and naval power directly across Rabaul's throat. In the concrete bunkers of Rabaul, General Imamura Hitoshi stares at the map in stunned silence. His 100,000-man 8th Area Army, once the pride of the Southeast Area Fleet, is suddenly irrevocably isolated. American bombers from the Admiralties, escorted by long-range P-38s, pound the fortress daily. Supply convoys are torn apart by PT boats and submarines. Imamura's staff officers exchange grim looks. "They didn't even attack us," one colonel whispers. "They just jumped." Rabaul, with its 5 airfields and massive stockpiles, becomes the war's largest bypassed garrison, a prison for an entire army that will slowly starve while the front races away. The speed of the leap sends shockwaves through Tokyo. At Imperial General Headquarters, Army Minister Hideki Tojo slams the table. "How do they appear 400 miles behind our lines in days?" he demands. Reports flood in. Manus Island secured, Emurao occupied without a fight, the entire Bismarck archipelago neutralized. Vice Admiral Shibasaki Keiji, architect of Tarawa's impregnable defenses, had boasted no American could take his island. Now Tarawa lies in ruins behind the advancing Allies, its lesson ignored. Japanese planners scramble to reinforce the next line, Hollandia, the Marianas, the Palaus, but MacArthur is already moving faster than their reinforcements can sail. April 22, 1944, Hollandia, Dutch New Guinea. Dawn breaks over a vast armada, 212 ships, the largest amphibious force yet in the Southwest Pacific. MacArthur himself stands on the bridge of the cruiser USS Nashville, sunglasses gleaming, watching as Kruger's 6th Army storms ashore at Etape and Tanamera Bay. The Japanese 18th Army headquarters at Hollandia, commanded by the exhausted Adachi, expects attack months away. Instead, 50,000 Americans land almost unopposed, capturing 3 airfields in pristine condition. Japanese troops flee into the jungle, abandoning warehouses stuffed with supplies. MacArthur wades ashore that afternoon, boots in the surf, declaring to newsreel cameras, "We have struck a solar plexus blow." You can almost see the disbelief in Japanese faces as radio intercepts pour in. Colonel Sadahiko Miyake, a staff officer in Manila, writes in his diary, "The enemy lands where he wishes, when he wishes. Our strong points become tombs. The pattern is merciless now. Reconnaissance flights spot weak defenses, carrier strikes soften them, then massive amphibious hooks bypass the fortified zones. Wakde, Biak, Noinfor fall in rapid succession. Each captured airfield extends bomber range another 200 miles, tightening the noose." General Kenny's 5th Air Force, P-38s, B-25s with skip bombing struts, A-20 Havoc roams at will, sinking barges and isolating garrisons. Meanwhile, in the Central Pacific, Nimitz's drive complements MacArthur's perfectly. On November 20th, 1933, Marines hit Tarawa's blood-soaked reef, paying a horrific price for the lesson, never again assault a heavily fortified atoll head-on if it can be bypassed. Kwajalein, Eniwetok, and now Saipan fall with growing efficiency. The two drives, MacArthur's coastal hops and Nimitz's central thrust, converge like jaws closing on the Philippines. But the greatest shock is yet to come. As summer 1944 approaches, MacArthur fixes his gaze on Morotai and the Halmahera chain, stepping stones to Mindanao and his promised return. Japanese intelligence predicts a methodical advance up the New Guinea coast. They mass troops at Wewak and Hansa Bay, fortifying for the expected blow. MacArthur smiles at the map. "Let them dig," he tells Kruger. "We're going straight for the jugular." On September 15, 1944, American troops land on Morotai against negligible resistance. Within weeks, airfields there host heavy bombers, striking the Philippines directly. The Japanese high command reels again. General Yamashita, now tasked with defending the Philippines, cables Tokyo. "Enemy strategy has rendered our perimeter defense obsolete. They choose the battlefield, not us." In smoke-filled rooms, admirals and generals argue bitterly. Army wants to fight decisive battles on land. Navy clings to fading carrier hopes. No one has an answer for MacArthur's relentless tempo. You feel the momentum now, unstoppable. Each leap leaves thousands of Japanese soldiers marooned, their radios crackling with desperate pleas that go unanswered. Food runs out, ammunition dwindles. Some garrisons resort to eating grass and insects, waiting for relief that never comes. The island hopping isn't just bypassing islands, it's bypassing the entire Japanese concept of defense. And then, on October 20th, 1944, the ultimate leap begins. 1,000 ships darken the horizon off Leyte Gulf. MacArthur's voice crackles over the radio as landing craft race toward the beaches. People of the Philippines, I have returned. The Japanese High Command stares at their maps in abject horror. The road to Tokyo has been shortened by thousands of miles in 2 years. How much farther can he jump before the empire itself crumbles?
Section 4. I have returned. October 20th, 1944, 1,000 hours. The beaches of Red Beach, Leyte Island, Philippines. A warm tropical rain pelts the surf as hundreds of LCVPs and LCMs churn toward shore, their ramps already lowering. You can taste the salt and diesel in the air, hear the thunder of naval guns from battleships like the USS West Virginia, reborn from Pearl Harbor's mud, pounding Japanese positions inland. Soldiers of Kruger's 6th Army, X Corps, and 24th Corps wade through knee-deep water under sporadic fire, M1 rifles held high. This time, the resistance is scattered. Japanese defenders, caught off guard by the timing and location, scramble to react. Aboard the cruiser USS Nashville, General Douglas MacArthur stands on deck in his signature sunglasses and gold-braided cap, rain streaming down his face. Beside him, Philippine President Sergio Osmeña and staff officers watch intently. As his personal landing craft noses toward the beach, MacArthur grips the rail. 2 years, 6 months, and 13 days since he was ordered out of Corregidor's tunnels, promising return through a hail of Japanese shells. Now the moment arrives. The craft grounds hard. MacArthur steps down the ramp into waist-deep water, cameras rolling for the newsreels, then strides ashore, water soaking his trousers. He pauses, turns to the microphone thrust forward by an aide, and his voice carries over the din of war. People of the Philippines, I have returned. By the grace of Almighty God, our forces stand again on Philippine soil. The words electrify the world. In Tokyo, the reaction is visceral. General Yamashita Tomoyuki, freshly appointed commander of the 14th Area Army defending the Philippines, receives the news in his Manila headquarters with a stony face. So soon, he mutters to his chief of staff, Lieutenant General Akira Muto. Intelligence had predicted Mindanao first, or a slower buildup. Instead, MacArthur has leapt 600 miles from Morotai, straight into the central Visayas, splitting Japanese defenses and threatening the entire archipelago. Yamashita's forces, 260,000 troops scattered across islands, are now forced into a desperate scramble. He cables Tokyo. Enemy has achieved strategic surprise of the highest order, decisive battle imminent. The scale of the Leyte operation staggers Japanese commanders. Over 700 ships, the largest amphibious force in Pacific history to date, support the landing. Carrier task forces under Halsey and Mitcher roam offshore, their Hellcats and Avengers shredding what remains of Japanese naval air power. On the first day alone, 100,000 Americans come ashore. Engineers bulldoze roads through coconut groves. Seabees extend Tacloban airfield within days. B-24 Liberators and P-38s thunder overhead, turning Leyte into a springboard. But the Japanese response is ferocious. Admiral Takeo Kurita's center force, including the super battleships Yamato and Musashi, steams from Singapore in a do-or-die attempt to smash the invasion fleet. What unfolds over 4 days, October 23rd to 26th, becomes the Battle of Leyte Gulf, the largest naval engagement in history. Off Samar, escort carriers and destroyers of Taffy 3, tiny jeep carriers with names like Gambier Bay, face down Kurita's heavies in a David versus Goliath stand. Destroyer Johnston charges battleships, torpedoes away, guns blazing, until she rolls over. A fight like this one survivor later says, "You don't believe until you see it." Kurita, believing he faces the full might of Halsey's Third Fleet, turns away, a decision that saves the beachhead but dooms Japanese sea power. You can almost feel the disbelief in Japanese war rooms as reports trickle in. Musashi sunk by relentless air attacks. 20 American aircraft carriers sighted, many mere escorts. Center Force repulsed. Admiral Soemu Toyota in Tokyo stares at the plot board. The Imperial Navy has ceased to exist as a fighting force, he concedes privately. With Leyte Gulf, Japan loses 28 warships and over 300 aircraft. America loses 3 escort carriers and a handful of destroyers. The balance tips irretrievably. On land, the fight for Leyte drags into weeks of monsoon mud and jungle horror. Japanese reinforcements under General Tomochika Ushijima pour in, launching suicidal counterattacks. American troops slog through rice paddies turned quagmire, malaria and dysentery claiming as many as bullets. Yet MacArthur pushes relentlessly. By Christmas 1944, Leyte is declared secure. 70,000 Japanese dead against 15,000 American casualties. The door to the rest of the Philippines swings wide. January 9, 1945, Lingayen Gulf, Luzon. Dawn reveals another armada, 850 ships stretching to the horizon. MacArthur's final great leap, a direct thrust at the heart of Japanese power in the archipelago, 120 miles north of Manila. Kruger's 6th Army lands against light beach resistance, but Yamashita has prepared his masterpiece, a fighting withdrawal into 3 mountain strongholds, the Sierra Madre, the Zambales, and Baguio. He intends to bleed the Americans white in prolonged attrition, buying time for the homeland defense. MacArthur refuses to play that game. While major units grind north toward Manila, he unleashes rapid flanking maneuvers. Paratroopers of the 11th Airborne drop south of the capital. Armored columns race down both coasts. On February 3rd, elements of the 1st Cavalry Division thunder into Manila's northern suburbs. "We're in," crackles the radio. MacArthur, monitoring from offshore, exhales. But the battle for the city becomes a nightmare, house-to-house slaughter as Rear Admiral Sanji Iwabuchi's 16,000 naval troops fight to the death, turning the Pearl of the Orient into rubble. Over 100,000 Filipino civilians perish in the crossfire and Japanese atrocities. Japanese generals watch their empire unravel in real time. Isolated garrisons on Mindanao, Cebu, Panay send frantic pleas, "Send reinforcements," that echo unanswered. Yamashita, from his mountain redoubt, issues orders that reach fewer and fewer units. In Tokyo, the Supreme War Council debates in growing panic. MacArthur moves faster than our ability to respond, one admiral admits. The hopping has not just reclaimed territory, it has shattered the Japanese defensive paradigm. Strongholds built for years fall in weeks or are bypassed entirely. Supply lines collapse, morale plummets. You sense the end approaching. With Luzon's airfields in American hands, B-29 superfortrons from the Marianas, captured in Nimitz's parallel drive, begin direct raids on Japan's home islands. Iwo Jima and Okinawa loom next, the final stepping stones. MacArthur, standing amid Manila's ruins in March 1945, gazes north toward Formosa and Japan itself. The man who turned retreat into relentless advance has kept his promise. But one question burns in Japanese minds as their outer empire crumbles. Can anything stop him before he reaches Tokyo Bay?
Section 5. The Empire's Final Shock. August 6, 1945, 0815 hours. Over the city of Hiroshima, a single B-29 superfortress named Enola Gay releases its payload at 31,000 feet. The bomb, nicknamed Little Boy, tumbles end over end before detonating 1,900 feet above the ground in a blinding flash brighter than the sun. You can imagine the Japanese observers on the ground, air raid wardens scanning the sky for the usual armada, spotting only one plane, dismissing it as reconnaissance. Then the world ends in fire. A fireball erupts, a mushroom cloud boils upward, and a shockwave flattens the city. Over 70,000 die instantly. Tens of thousands more will succumb to burns and radiation in the coming weeks. In Tokyo, the first fragmented reports reach Imperial headquarters by late morning. Officers gather around radios, faces pale. One bomb? General Yoshijiro Umezu, chief of the Army General Staff, repeats incredulously. One plane destroyed an entire city? The details are too monstrous to comprehend. Entire districts vaporized, survivors with skin sliding off their bodies, fires raging unchecked. Military planners had prepared for firebombing raids like those that already gutted Tokyo on March 9-10th, 100,000 dead in a single night of LeMay's low-level incendiaries. But this is different. This is one bomb. 3 days later, August 9th, Kokura is spared by cloud cover. The secondary target, Nagasaki, is not. Fat Man detonates with even greater force. Another city erased. The same disbelief sweeps through the corridors of power. Emperor Hirohito himself receives the reports in the imperial palace, his advisors bowing low, voices trembling. Even the most fanatical officers, men who swore to fight to the last man on the beaches of Kyushu, begin to waver. But the atomic bombings are only the final hammer blow. The true foundation for Japan's collapse was laid by MacArthur's island-hopping campaign and its relentless compression of time and space. By mid-1945, the path he blazed from Guadalcanal to Luzon has converged with Nimitz's central thrust through Iwo Jima and Okinawa into a vice crushing the empire's lifeline. February-March 1945, Iwo Jima. Marines of the 4th and 5th Divisions storm ash-covered beaches under Mount Suribachi's brooding shadow. The fighting is apocalyptic. Japanese defenders under General Tadamichi Kuribayashi fight from an invisible honeycomb of tunnels and bunkers, refusing surrender. Flame-throwing tanks, demolition charges, and sheer grit finally secure the island after 36 days, at the cost of 6,800 American dead and 19,000 wounded, nearly the entire Japanese garrison of 21,000 annihilated. The iconic flag raising atop Suribachi becomes legend, but the real prize is the airfields. Crippled B-29s now have emergency landing strips on the direct route to Japan. April 1st, June 22nd, 1945. Okinawa, the last great leap before the home islands. Over 1,300 ships deliver 180,000 troops of Lieutenant General Simon Bolivar Buckner's 10th Army. Japanese commander Ushijima Mitsuru orchestrates a masterful defense in depth, trading space for American blood across the Shuri Line's caves and ridges. kamikaze attacks, over 1,900 sorties sink or damage 36 U.S. ships. Rain turns the battlefield into a charnel house of mud and maggots. When it ends, 12,500 Americans are dead, but Japan loses over 110,000 soldiers and sailors, plus up to 150,000 Okinawan civilians caught in the maelstrom. The Ryukyus fall, placing American fighter escorts within easy reach of Kyushu. All the while, MacArthur prepares for Operation Olympic, the invasion of Kyushu, scheduled for November 1st. Intelligence estimates 900,000 Japanese defenders, millions of civilians armed with bamboo spears, and 10,000 kamikaze aircraft waiting. Casualty projections reach 500,000 Americans. Japanese leaders know the homeland cannot hold forever, yet the code of Bushido demands a final apocalyptic battle. But MacArthur's campaign has already stripped them of options. The outer empire is gone, bypassed garrisons on Rabaul, Truk, Wewak, and Bougainville. Hundreds of thousands of troops wither away, eating roots and leather, their radios silent. Oil convoys no longer reach Japan, factories grind to a halt, submarines and mines choke the inland sea, B-29s from Guam, Tinian, and Saipan rain fire, and now atomic devastation unopposed. August 10th, the Supreme War Council deadlocks. Hardliners, led by Army Minister Korochika Anami, insist on one final decisive battle, even if the entire Japanese race is destroyed. Moderates, including Navy Minister Mitsumasa Yonai and Foreign Minister Shigenori Togo, argue for surrender to preserve the imperial line. The atomic bombs tip the scale, but the deeper truth is simpler. MacArthur's island-hopping campaign has brought the war to Japan's doorstep years ahead of schedule. The empire has run out of islands to trade. August 15th, noon. Emperor Hirohito's voice, heard by most Japanese for the first time, crackles over the radio in the Gyokuon Hoso broadcast. We have resolved to pave the way for a grand peace for all generations to come by enduring the unendurable and suffering what is insufferable. The war is over. September 2nd, 1945, 0900 hours, Tokyo Bay aboard USS Missouri. MacArthur, now Supreme Commander for the Allied Powers, stands tall in his open-necked shirt, corncob pipe in hand. Before him, Foreign Minister Mamoru Shigemitsu and General Umezu sign the instrument of surrender. Battleships line the bay. Carrier planes roar overhead in victory formation. MacArthur speaks into the microphones. It is my earnest hope, indeed the hope of all mankind, that from this solemn occasion a better world shall emerge, a world dedicated to the dignity of man. You can almost see the Japanese delegation's bowed heads, the weight of disbelief still etched on their faces. 3 years earlier, they had ruled an empire stretching from India to Alaska. Now, because one American general refused to fight the war they expected, because he leapt over their fortresses, isolated their armies, and shortened the Pacific by thousands of miles, they kneel in defeat. The island-hopping campaign didn't just win the war, it shocked an entire military culture into realizing that speed, selection, and surprise could defeat fortified attrition faster than any frontal assault ever could. From Guadalcanal's muddy beaches to Tokyo Bay's calm waters, MacArthur's bold vision turned the vast Pacific into a highway home and left Japanese generals forever wondering how the tide turned so swiftly against them.